just have to be agents, because we all 411 operations people too. So let's start with maybe just a couple of questions. If you have questions, comments, or something that you maybe really struggle with, or something that you do incredibly well around the 411. Who's got something?
I mean, I'll fire off. One of the things that that I've been leveraging recently, at least with myself, and we actually at our 4 o'clock meeting with the team, one of our agents was kind of struggling. She's a new mom. She's got like a 4-month-old, and her struggle is, you know, being in bold. She's a newer agent. She's only been an agent for like 2 months. She's, you know, she's successful and doing well and well coached and everything. And one of her struggles is figuring out how to get those calls done, how to make this all work within her schedule. And so what I leveraged out from the last session where I sat at Dave Papazon and Jeff Woods was like taking the 411 and going deeper with it, right? So when we were looking at our standard 401, it has like our weeks. It's like our month, right? These things that we're going to accomplish. And in our coaching folders, we meet with our Rainmaker regularly. And so we've got all of the 401s for the entire year. And so we looked at the things and when we're going to accomplish them, those went in that 401. That's not small enough for us. So I developed like what I call like a micro 411, which is basically like a weekly calendar view where all the things that I have on my schedule, when I would be doing what, all goes in there. And then I'm able to share that with my Rainmaker, who can analyze it, now can see everything that I intend to do and accomplish and when I intend to accomplish it for that week, as opposed to like a monthly view. So we're looking at it every week, and I actually revise it based on where I've pivoted, and I send it to her every day so that she can kind of review it. Maybe we can look at redirecting. So in this instance, I suggested Brittany utilize that same tactic, look at her week at a weekly view, based on all of those time blocks, and what is the one thing that she could do to help her be accountable to making those 40 contacts, to making sure that she's getting her lead gen in or follow up, making sure that she's getting all of those things, all of the opportunities set up in command, and being a great mom, right? Because they have to marry together. So I think that really diving into your calendar, whether you do it on a calendar or using micro 401, just really digging in and looking at your week so that you can operate much more efficiently. And I mean, I can say that my production has definitely increased since bringing that into play. So
yeah, I think that the whole goal of the 411 is to make us all more productive and efficient.
Yep, and it's all like what they were saying in bold, right? That's the meat of the sandwich. You got the bookends, right? But then you've got strategic options, and then you've got systems and tools, and the 401 is another tool that we use, and it works, right? It's a model that is proven and it works. So if we can commit to ourselves in operations to using that at a higher level and lead by example and spread some of our tactics onto our teammates, you know, what kind of impact can we have on their business and their lives? Because once again, if she's a better mom and she's more confident about that, she's going to feel more confident about being a great agent as well, and her level of client care. So you know, you've got to invest in yourself, and you've got to invest in your time and protect your time. And the only way to do that is to be intentional and purposeful about it.
I saw the comment from Chelsea here. I just wanted to touch base, Chelsea, touch base on that. I also struggle with that. It's because it's hard to come up with goals when, you know, they're so like boom, 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 task related. And it's very hard for myself to break that up. Meeting with my Rainmaker, she put it in a very simple way that actually helped me. So I want to play tennis is one of my goals. So she broke it down of like, okay, well, if you want to play tennis, what do you need to know before you actually play, like try to play tennis? So by doing that on a sheet of paper, just writing out whatever it is you want to do, figure out like, well, if I want to do that, don't I have to learn the basics? Don't I have to get a racket? Don't I have to find a park to play at? So the things that lead up to that goal that you want to do are the tasks that you're able to break out into your 411. So that's helped me a lot when doing my monthly 411s because it's very difficult to break up sometimes, like task by task by task, and it makes it fun. So hopefully that helps.
It's a great example, Amber. I love the tennis example. Like, you have to break it down to the first, like very Jeff Woods for like one thing, right? Like the smallest first thing. But while we're on the subject of transaction coordinators, because a lot of you may be 411 with a TC or an account manager or listing coordinator or something, and their job is really task heavy. Let's talk about that. How do you 411 someone who's 80% or like who the bulk of their job, the majority of their job is to handle a checklist?
For me, that's why I had to leverage that, because we're diminishing as we move along, and we're so task oriented. We've got to keep pace with the business. And when we're extremely busy, what happens? We end up in the place that I hate to live in, which is a reactive state. So part of my journey recently has been looking at that, and that it's all about the rhythm. So, we've got tons and tons of tasks, and we're good at what we do, right? When you've got all of those tasks though, and you can commit to building out a rhythm to that, and then that can be communicated effectively. It's definitely helped, because I'm not as squirrely and all over the place, right? My teammates know I've got a life problem from time to time, right? So having that focus and knowing, okay, well, this is the rhythm of my week, and then I can look at what things are a priority, and if I need to kind of switch that. But in general, what I beta tested this past week was, for instance, like price adjustments. We're in a bit of changing markets. We've definitely want to be looking at like those absorption rates, months of housing supply, so that we can leverage that information for our clients whenever we're communicating with them. So as part of that, I have a specific price adjustment now, time block within my schedule that happens weekly. So my teammates know that as I provide that information and I arm the clients with accurate data so they can make informed decisions, that we're going to execute those price adjustments, and that's going to happen on Wednesday mornings for me. That's my Wednesday morning time block, is processing, doing the compliance items, follow-up marketing, all that stuff falls into that category. Listings for me in our office, it's communicated with the sellers that they go live on Tuesdays and Thursdays, because we're listing heavy, right? We take on a lot of listings. So having a process for that and building it out has definitely helped increase the efficiency and keeping you from touching and getting involved in one thing and then having to leave and then come back and then leave. And where was I? And did I do that? Right. So cutting down on all of that and having a flow to it just makes a lot more sense and has been extremely helpful.
David, I just realized you were on the Death Star.
That's right. These are the operations people we're looking for.
I love that. Well, let me ask this question to the group, because I love that you brought up David. I love that you brought up Jay Papazan and Jeff Woods, because they're like the masters of this whole process, right? Like GPS all the way down to the 411. So for 411, whose meeting is it? Like, who gets to run the meeting? If you are in an appointment and someone has brought to you their 411, is it your meeting or their meeting? You're muted, Amber.
personally, I would think it would be their meeting because it's their goals. You know, we're here as their success team to support them and guide them in their journey. So when our agents want to bring that to us, I'm going to be all ears and provide that guidance because it is their meeting. I can't tell them what goals are going to be more important. I can't tell them what priorities are going to be more important because it's not my life. Only thing that I can do to best help them is just be their rock and give them the guidance that they need.
Nailed it. It's their meeting, right? Like this is their 30 minutes. This is not your 30 minutes to tell them how they didn't do their job well or how they should do their job different or better or whatever. This is their 30 minutes to talk to you about their goals and their progress on those goals, and then to get help from you if they need it. So you need to build that in, but this is not your time, it's their time. So if it's their time, how should you conduct the meeting?
Reminds me of how many ears do you have and how many mouths do you have, right? We want to approach it from, of course, coming from contribution, right? But allowing them to provide you with all of the information. It's just like whenever you're talking to a coach sometimes, and then they pause on you, and you feel uncomfortable, and then you got to come out and give them some more information, right? It's human nature. That's how we operate. So just letting them kind of talk through it. Most of the time they figure it out on their own. We're just more here to hold them accountable to it because they're sharing that information with that. And as their success partners, we truly are partnered in their success. So we want to support that in whatever way we can. And sometimes that's just simply listening to them hash it out in their own mind and then watching it click.
A lot of the ways that like I always keep in my mind is my rainmaker and she does this for everybody on our team, is we have our monthly meetings where we do go over our 411, our goals. You know, it's really just a great time to meet one-on-one, to get aligned, to have that support, to have communication with someone who's just wanting to listen and be there for you. So when I talk to our agents, and I coach them and I'm working with them, I always keep that in mind of how great it felt when my rainmaker would sit down with me and just listen. And at the end of every time I would say, I want to do this goal. And if I say it's something I know I'm going to struggle with, she'll always ask, like, how can I keep you accountable to this? So just having that initial question when they're done talking about their goals will really kind of help, like, that's a good point. Like, you can say you want to do something all day, every day, but are you really, like, how can I hold you accountable to actually doing it? It's a good conversation.
Yeah, and that was a question, right? Like you're just asking them a question. Kaylee, what's the C word that is your favorite right now? Come from
contribution.
The other one, Kaylee.
Oh, I missed that. Sorry, Megan. No, I'm not sure.
Like saying curiosity, like
curiosity. Oh gosh, yes, that's my word of the hour right now. Sorry, I missed that.
I know. I was like, Kaylee, what? Your word is not contribution. Yeah, calorisms. We'll get it next time, Kaylee.
Sorry, she walked in right when you said it, and I was like.
It's like staying in curiosity, like Amber nailed it. Like, how can I help? Like, what, does anybody know Gary's 5 411 questions? And then I'll hand this back over to y'all. I'm clearly feeling chatty today. Anybody remember Gary's questions? It's what was your goal?
How did you do?
How'd you do?
How did you feel about it?
How do you feel about that?
How can I help you do better? No.
What are you going to do? Like, based on that, what are you going to do next? And then what do you have all of the information, resources, knowledge, skills, etc. that you need in order to do that? That's a 411 with Gary Keller. That's it.
So what are some goals, before we maybe share a few or we can dive in, that you guys have? We can circle back and we can go through all positions, but specifically for the transaction coordinator, since that was brought up and seems to be a challenge. So what are some goals you've seen?
So we've been really focusing with our admin team on creating a playbook for their positions because we've been highly focused on their career paths. But in order for them to move up, we need them to be able to train their replacements. So a lot of their goals have been based around creating their playbooks and, you know, how can we turn that into bite-sized pieces that they can do throughout their week. And then we've also been having them help out with client appreciation, and we're pretty new construction heavy, so builder appreciation as well. And so a part of their 411 is contributing to those projects as well. And then we talk about how do we make agents feel important or clients feel important. And then we focus on, you know, talking about them bringing in referrals to the team.
How did you pick those things, Kaylee?
When we were building out our GPS, all of our admin helped us build it out. And part of that process was talking about how our systems are working. And as we started building out our systems and going completely paperless, we just sort of kind of grew into this playbook and training somebody for their career path. So it kind of just grew out of the from the GPS.
Oops, sorry. Where should it come from? How do you create a 411?
Well, we created ours directly from the GPS.
Nailed it.
Okay, yeah.
Come on, guys, let's get authentic like last week. What are some real problems you're having?
I know for me, like, not the TC I have now, but the TC I had before. And then, so now as a result, the TC I have now kind of falls into the same patterns, but it's like listings at 100% accuracy, buyers at 100% accuracy. And so I was trying to explain, like that's great that you want to be 100%, but like the goal gets kind of stale. Like, okay, like, yes, we're always trying to do our best. So, for me, I've been trying to focus on breaking that down. Like, what does that look like? Like, are you trying to work on your communication skills? Are you trying to get a review from every single client that you're interacting with? Like, what specifically would make things 100%? Because everyone's idea of 100% can be totally different. Like, what I think is 100% might not be what you think is 100%. And so I feel like it's just way too general. And so just trying to work on like breaking that down even further is what I've been working on, like with my TC. So I don't know.
That's awesome. I think that's really good, right? Because very much one of the ways that I found success in my prior team and coaching to it, even with agents, is looking at it as your yearly goal, right? Which is lag measures we talked about, monthly goals, which is lag measure, weekly activities, right? What activities you're going to do week to week. That's what David was alluding to. What weekly activities you're going to do to move forward. So Kelsey, like you said, working and planning around those are good. I do want to key in on the fact that both in the one thing, MREA, Gary said it, and we see it across the industry, reaching your goals and doing those habits is boring, right? And I think that's a lot of the problem, what we're talking about here, right? If you want to really get to it, it's like, oh, we want this sexy, like creative, like really exciting GPS. And the bottom line is, even an agent's GPS, if they're executing it at a high level, it's pretty darn boring, right? It's just like lead gen, set your appointments. Lead gen, set your appointments. Like, I mean, it's pretty basic, like based off of that. And even with these huge complicated GPSs, right, most of the complication falls to the admin, right? Like you get into priority 1, then you get in like strategy 1, 2, or 3. It's basically like buyer agent set so many appointments. listing specialist, that's so many appointments. Like, it's pretty simple for them and boring. And it could be the same on the transaction side. So that may be something that helps you, and look at it as a weekly activity of what they can do and then how we can support them. One of the other ways and things I've seen success, and you can work with it, is even at the top, right? If they're not on the GPS, we still always usually have a transaction goal. So a lot of times you can word or coach toward, the yearly goal in such a fashion where it's along the lines of like maintain and complete, right, client files to support how many transactions. And that allows you to break it down monthly, and then that allows you weekly to get in some activities of what they need to do to complete that and execute it and switch. So with that in mind and that lens, now what are some goals and weekly activities you could come up with? What does that look like if you were to develop a list or work with your TCs?
Something that struck me really hard at family reunion, Jay Papazan said, people don't leave companies because they didn't reach their business goals. They leave companies because they didn't reach their personal goals. And for the majority of all of our admin, but I would say the majority of admin in general, the goal, personally, is to move up. I would not say all of them. Some people love where they're at. But if their goal is to move up, how can we incorporate their business goals and their personal goals on their GPS? So for me, it looks like encouraging them to create their playbooks because they want to move up. So what's the step to moving up? Well, you create your playbook, right? But then what else? Well, you got to start training for your new position too. So what is your career path and what kind of training can you take to get there? So we talk about that on their GPSs too. That's kind of a default for us.
I was gonna piggyback off of that kind of. Back when I first started 411ing people, I used to be like, oh, like if you're not comfortable with your personal or financial goals, because a lot of them would come to me and be like, do I have to fill this part out? Like, I don't know what to put here. And I used to be like, oh, it's fine. Like, if you don't feel comfortable, it's fine. But now to me, it's kind of like, please do fill them out, because like a huge part of that is like getting to know them and building that relationship. And I understand, like, for some people it is really uncomfortable, but it's also like, first of all, are they the right fit if they're a person who like can't open up like that? But it's really how you build that deeper connection with someone and really get to know them and what motivates them. And so I found that part to be like the most important part of the 411, just kind of re-looking at it over the past year and changing my mindset to like building on that part too, and really, and because for me, and before I was like, oh, just agents need to fill that out. Like, it's not a big deal for admin. It's just kind of like reshifting that focus. Been working on.
Right, and we meet when we like say meet with our rainmaker. When I say we, I mean Amber and I. That's a huge part of the conversation, right? Because we all have professional goals, of course, whatever those may be within the business. With that, you also have your personal goals, and some of those personal goals, and that was awesome, Kaylee, by the way. But some of your personal goals may not just be things revolving around the business. There may be goals that you want to accomplish. For me, last year it was purchase a home, and my team, everyone. It wasn't just one member, it was everyone. And we're like that with all of our goals, whatever they are, personal or professional. We hold each other accountable to them, and they're all communicated openly. We have it up on the wall so that everyone can see. And so we know what those kind of bigger whys are. There might be a couple of them for them. These things that they want to accomplish and the timelines that they wish to accomplish them in. So whenever we're able to dig that was awesome. What you were saying, Kelsey, about like understanding them personally and having a stronger understanding of who they are, what their big whys are, what their drivers are. And then we can support those. And then we can look at how we can help them achieve those personal goals, because they're going to have that feeling of accomplishment. They're going to have a feeling of unity within the team. They're going to have more value proposition for the team when they see that, right? And how can I be the best me that I can be, right? If I'm not looking at myself from that perspective, personal goals and my business goals, because they support one another, right? The better I am at being a dad, the better I am at, working in the business, right? If I'm anxious about other things outside, if I'm, if my saving and investment goals aren't where they need to be, then am I going to be thinking about that and back here somewhere? Is that going to somehow, like, for me, you guys already know, crazy, easily distracted, right? So I wouldn't be necessarily 100%. I might be 98, but I need that 2%. And so having those things well communicated and open with everyone, it helps drive those professional goals. And, as the dominoes get larger and larger and larger, that's going to, at the end of the day, equate to us hitting our transaction goals at the end of the year.
I think something that you said was really key, David. And I find that it creates buy-in, and that's celebrating the wins, right? Yeah, we have ours posted, not on the wall, but every team meeting, everybody gets a printout or a PDF of our minutes, or, what we're going to go over. But the second page is everyone's goals. And anytime someone on our team hits one of their personal goals, they'll let me know. And we make it a big deal at team meeting, like, woo, and so now they've created buy-in. They want to hit their next one. They want to be celebrated, and that also brought up one other thing. I have our TC working on our database, and every day she goes through 5 contacts on our database and make sure we have as much information on that contact as possible. And the other day she hit 200 contacts in 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were like, whoa, 200 contacts, and she's busy. She's a busy TC. So I mean, I agree with you, David. I think that creates a little buy-in, and she's arguably one of our best 411ers. So.
So for us, we were kind of hitting this wall of how we were asking everyone on the team to fill out their GPS and their 411s, because it was the basic questions like, so what are your goals for next year? Things like that. And they couldn't get past like, oh, I should be doing this many in transactions or closing this month, this number a month for listing side, buyer side, yada, yada, yada. And I was working on our team advance for 2021, and I found some really cool questions that made me think. I was like, well, silly, you were asking the right questions, but completely the wrong way, like 100% the wrong way. Let me pull it up here. So for like a TC or an LC, I just switched how I was asking them. How many transactions do you think you can handle at one time next year? That's a promise you're making to me. That's a promise you're making to the team. And then to kind of push them as like their stretch promise, how many do you think you could handle if we gave you 3 more on top of that? And then like the next level, so the next level for like your spot, your role, how many could you handle if we gave you help? So like a virtual assistant or just an assistant in general. I'm incorporating more of those questions. And then for some of our other admin who don't close the number of transactions, so our client care department, our event coordinator and stuff like that, some of the questions I'm going to be asking them is, how do you want to enhance your skills for 2021? That's a promise that you're going to make to us. How do you want to increase your responsibilities? How do you want to achieve leadership? To kind of get them to think outside of the box, because I feel like they always see the agents think in numbers and they feel like they have to, and they don't. So I'm just changing how I incorporate those questions to get them to go deeper.
Oh, my bad.
Great questions, Chrisanne. Does anybody have like somebody on their staff who, I mean, if they were being honest, would say like, what's your goal? Like, I want your job. Like they don't want to be TCs forever, right? Most of them, they want to go somewhere. So that was a great list of questions. When you've got someone who wants your job, how can you groom them so that you are building your replacement? Like, how can you use the 411 to help groom your replacement so that you can have the next job? Real question.
I think that, you know, breaking out your role, knowing what those pieces are, and then committing to within that, you know, 411 GPS schedule, gaining traction on those specific pieces and sticking to it. So like we're pretty hardcore on the 1% items. So whatever you're doing, don't overwhelm yourself with it. Don't try to train them and everything. Work it in increments, right? And make those 1% improvements to the business. Make those 1% improvements towards your own self-mastery. Make those 1% improvements to how you what your action is within your role. So then if you commit to, like, say, you know, training your replacement, then this is going to be a hard non-negotiable. We're going to spend this amount of time. So then you looking at it proactively, if I know that I'm going to lose this hour of training 2 days a week or whatever, then what's the one thing that I can do with my schedule so that I can gain that time back or work more efficiently? So those are definitely the key, I think, really important.
Yeah, I wanted to add kind of my thought to your question, Megan, is we need to kind of have an opportunity map for where everyone could go. Like if my TC wanted my job, I need to figure out where I'm going to go. Or maybe she doesn't actually want my job. She just lacks the vision of where she could go higher. Because a lot of people want more money, but they see that as moving up in the organization as the way to get it. And so if there's vision on how they could do more for the organization, maybe it's not moving up to the director of operations, maybe it's adding this or that. Just having that vision of where they could go sometimes helps solve some of that. But yeah, having it all mapped out and be a big vision so everyone fits into it.
I like that point a lot because like my TC is a VA. And so, you know, I'm always asking her like, what's your goal? And like her goal like is to grow obviously, but it's hard because she is virtual. And so there's only like, I don't like to say it, but it's like hard. How far can you really go if you're not in the office? You know, it's like, so refocusing that and like, what does growing mean? Like maybe that means you can handle X more amount of transactions, kind of like David was saying, or Chrisanne was saying, and like maybe that means more money if you're able to handle more. Like that could mean you're growing in that sense. But I struggle with that a little bit for the VA because I know the VA wants to grow, like they want to support the team as best as possible, but for them it can be a little confusing to figure out what that kind of looks like. I don't know if anyone else struggles with that, but I do, because my VA is awesome, but it's a hard thing, you know, to think about.
So for us, piggyback off of you guys both, it did start with an org chart. I sort of started from admin 1 and created this org chart and built it out over 10 years. What could it look like? And then it was interesting because after presenting it, our admin sort of naturally kind of shifted toward one thing or the other on that chart and said, well, that's something I'd like to do. So we naturally in their 411 started shifting toward, well, okay, let's work toward that as your career path. Let's add trainings. Let's talk about what you want to do and how you're going to get there. So it might just start with casting a vision. Also on top of that, Kelsey, you mentioned, you know, does she move up? And I had a similar thought because our TC her goal isn't really to become more necessarily like another title, but she's really interested in having an assistant. And to some people, that's enough, you know? So maybe she becomes a leader in her own pack, so to speak.
But I think it goes back to the beginning of what we were talking about. A great question is, have we asked them how they see their role and future in the company? Right? And let them do part of the heavy lifting, because if they don't have that answer, that's your leadership opportunity, right? Is first we need to discover what that answer is and what that looks like. And that could be a good length of time, especially if you're doing, like David said, the 1% increment improvement. That could be a good chunk of a year discovering what that may look like and how to build that out. So I think that would be a great question to start with.
I know last week, the whole reason we came up with the 411s was where you talked about the agents 411s. Do we want to talk about the agents 411s at all, or are you guys good on that?
I think it would be helpful to talk about the agent 411s as well.
So Liz, I know that you were struggling with one of your agents last week because she came in and just talked. What is your normal process for how you run your agent 411s?
It's a good question. I'm still figuring it out because I'm relatively new to running them. It's kind of I haven't been following Gary's questions exactly. However, like, what was your goal for last week? How did you do? The issue being, like, some of these agents who are high eyes don't take the time to sit down and fill out the 411. And I'm realizing that's one of the big things is I need to make sure that they're actually filling out a 411 and their pipeline before they come and meet with me. So that I can go through their 411 and say, I see that this is your goal. How did you do last week? And I think that if I have that written, I may actually be able to pull them in a little bit more too when they start getting off topic.
So let's say that you require them to come to the meeting with their numbers and yet they don't come in with their numbers. What's a way you can work around that?
We'll ask them what got in the way of you putting together your numbers for the week. Have you been tracking your numbers, or, and did you just not get a chance to compile them, or did you not track them at all?
So do you have a team tracking system? How are you guys tracking the numbers?
Yep. I created something using Google Forms and Google Sheets and everything that they're supposed to fill out every day with what they did that day.
So are you finding that when they don't come in with their numbers, they're not filling it out every day?
Yes, we have some agents who seem a little bit resistant to tracking numbers. They don't understand the value in it. I had one agent who specifically told me, he's like, I could make 3 calls and set 2 appointments, or I could make 150 calls and set 1 appointment. Like, it doesn't, like, knowing my numbers, how many calls I have to make to set an appointment doesn't affect my appointments. Like, I feel like he doesn't understand how valuable that is, which I think is something that we need to do a better job of explaining. And I think that that's often the issues. We also had one agent who, her exact reasoning was, God doesn't care about the numbers, so I shouldn't have to either. Which, so we're trying to work through that, and, well, that's fine. However, this is why you're in debt. This is why you have no money, is because you don't pay attention to the numbers. So I think a lot of it's just figuring out exactly why they feel the way they do and coming up, with the objection handlers.
That's quite an objection. Man, I never heard that before.
Well, God doesn't care whether you have a job or make money either.
Wow.
Why are the numbers important? Like, what is important about tracking the numbers?
That's how we know what to predict. It's how we know what we need to do, where we're going to be. If we don't know what our numbers are, we don't know what we have to do to achieve our goals. So, and the other thing too is, if we know how many phone calls it takes to set an appointment, if we know how many appointments we have to set to attend, how many we have to attend to sign, how many we have to sign to, so on and so forth, we can figure out maybe where each particular agent needs a little bit more scripting practice, where their shortfalls are, and work with them on that.
Yeah, Liz, that's the key. That's what they need to understand. When they have those numbers, it tells you as a leader where they need help. So what area do they need help in? And then you can dig into that area and figure out, is this a mindset issue? Is it a habit issue? Is it a skills issue? Because you've narrowed it down to the area.
I think some of them don't want to admit that they need scripting.
We were to the
go
same
ahead.
problem where the agents weren't turning in the numbers daily, and I still have one problem child. She will always be my problem child, and she knows it, and she's working on it. But the one thing that we started doing is we have a morning huddle that lasts like 10 to 15 minutes. And as soon as we're done with that morning huddle, all the agents go break, they go and do their numbers, and then they come back for their scripting. So this way it's already blocked in their time into their daily schedule. They're doing it all together, so they're essentially holding each one accountable for it. And as far as it comes down to like why you're tracking what you're tracking, my philosophy is, why work harder? Why not work smarter? So if you know where your weakness is, build it up to a strength so you don't have to make so many dials and contacts to get to the buyer rep and to get them under contract. I mean, they all tell a story. Where is this story leading us and all that stuff? And another trick that I did, because she wanted to be held super accountable to it, an agent on our team, she was struggling hardcore with tracking and keeping the numbers, from the day prior and all that stuff. She literally handed me a check for $100 written out to someone that she was not the biggest fan of. And she said, if I forget my numbers at any point in time, you are to hand this check to that said person. I tell you what, she never missed a day because she refused to let that person have that check.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
So find their that little push of a button where that would get them bad, and you say, okay, you don't do that. What are you going to do then? And for her, it was writing a check out to that one person.
I really like that.
It worked wonders
Like
for her.
that. I mean, we're all gonna experience a time with a problem child. It's gonna happen. It's a part of our job, and it's okay because it's a way for us to grow and it's a way for them to grow. And the one thing I've learned with getting new agents on the team, learning new personalities, learning what you can say and how to interact with them to really get them to push. It's been fun. One of my agents is super competitive, so I make it a contest. I ran a contest, I forgot, it was like a couple months ago. Winner got a $50 Visa gift card if they brought 2 contracts and 2 listings, kind of thing. So holding them accountable in that sense and promoting the business. But I like that check idea. I wrote that down. David, we're doing that.
But the key is to make sure that they write it out and give it to you.
Oh, yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
not, they're just going to dodge the bullet.
Oh no, because I always ask, like we always ask for the team numbers. I've even created a spreadsheet in our team drive. We have a Google team drive, and I'm like, hey guys, it's so important for David and I to get these numbers. So we're here to help you reach your goals and see where you're at, and work with our coach and things like that. And texting him like a day before my coach would call, like, where's your numbers? Need your numbers. So thanks for that. That's awesome. I'm doing that.
I think another good script to throw at them is that through tracking, if I know what your conversion ratio is, right, I'm developing what's going to become the combination to the safe, which holds within it your success. So as I go through these numbers, I'm being very purposeful. I'm going to provide you with exactly what you're going to need to accomplish and when and what those timelines look like. To do so, I need the information. I need the data first. And then I'm going to give you that combo to that safe. And then I'm going to support you and empower you to open that safe. Because my success is defined by your success. So the more successful you are, the more successful I am, the more successful the business is. But let's open that safe. Let's crack it and let's see what's inside.
That's a good script right there. I like that.
Yeah.
And they brought that up and they break it out in, what was that? Was it a family reunion or a mega camp? I have it in my notes somewhere where they broke out exactly what that combination looks like if you're going to be, I think it's an MREA, and what that looks like, how many, and based on your conversion ratios, by the squads, and builds up a formula. But it is pretty powerful. When I taught at our market center, I busted the full formula out for all of them, and they were all just like, so it does have an impact on those, especially those I types, because they are a little bit more fun whenever we're in operations. We're different, and we prove it.
For me on my team, what worked, and it might not work for everyone, but I resorted to using scare tactics. So I started using the word on them that I was going to be doing an audit. So I told them, okay guys, every Monday at 9 a.m. you have to have your 4-1 and your numbers from the week before in there, and I'm doing an audit. And so ever since I told them I was doing an audit, everyone turns their stuff in. I haven't had an issue with that. And I really do the audit because I don't do the 411 conversations. Our lead buyer specialist does. But every Monday at 11 a.m., I give them a 2-hour grace period. I go and track how many days of the week that they did their numbers and that their 4-1 was uploaded into all their folders. And I email the lead buyer specialist and I let them know 5 days tracked, 4 days tracked, whatever it may be. And if I'm seeing something is missing, I email them, hey, by the way, I just did my audit. You're missing your stuff. You have to have it in by your 1-on-1 or your 1-on-1 is canceled. So, I mean, it might not work for everyone, but for me, I haven't had an issue since I started doing the audit, and that was like 6 months ago. So maybe try that if you're struggling. I don't know.
If there's something you guys don't want to do, like, I don't know about y'all, but I'm a super high D. So if I don't want to do something, you're probably not going to get me to do it. I'm going to totally out negotiate you. It's like my superpower. And agents are pretty good at that too. So if you've got, like, from your own perspective, right? Like if there's something you don't want to do and you're talking to your rainmaker or whomever, what are some ways that you can be motivated to do that thing? Let's go ahead and assume the thing is actually good for your job. This is not like an arbitrary thing, but like this would actually move you forward.
I won't say suffer, but I've overcome, David knows, I've overcome that in my professional journey. Like when I first started here, if I didn't know how to do something or if I didn't want to do it, I would kick the can so hard and so far that I'm like, it's fine, I'll do it later. And then it always came back and bit me in the butt every single time. Every single time. And what really motivated me to do that is something I don't want to do, but in my head it's making me a better person. So my mindset is, I really don't want to do this. I have no idea how to do this. And I trained my mindset to go, yeah, but imagine how you're going to feel when you do it. Imagine how much more you're going to know once it's done. And even if it's not perfect, even if there's mistakes, you're still learning. Because my biggest motto is, if I don't know, I don't grow. Like, like something like that.
Vision for saying that, Amber. Like, yes, like I would not have even thought of that, but that is such a good point, right? Like confusion prevents commitment. So if you don't know exactly how to do it, and maybe your agents that might be one thing your agents are experiencing too, right? Confusion prevents commitment. So if they don't know how, they're just not going to. And maybe that's one thing you're experiencing in the 411. And so the question might be, do you have what skills or techniques, or like what training might you need in order to, what would your world look like a week from now if you had the training appropriate in order to feel confident in doing X? Might be a great 411 question if you're getting a lot of pushback. What else? Like if you are just not, like if you do not want to do something, how else are you motivated to get it done?
For me, like a lot of the reason why sometimes I'm not motivated is because as like operations, like the projects are so large and so like big visioned. And so like just breaking that down into smaller task oriented stuff or things you can check off, and breaking the project down helps me shift my mindset to, okay, this is attainable. Like I can tackle this in a day, in a week, whatever it may be, because some of them are projects that may take like a year to work on. And so just that helps motivate me to keep going and not just keep delaying the project. I should practice what I preach some more, but yes, that is
it's so good for like an agent. So let's say an agent wants to do 50 deals this year, and that maybe to the agent feels like one of those projects, a year-long project that is impossible to accomplish. So maybe helping them break it down into like just the one domino, like David started this whole call out with, like the smallest thing that they could possibly do. Maybe that could be a technique for moving them forward if they're really stuck. So
yeah, just that 2-inch domino. I love that. A great example we see a lot, especially on like the personal goals, is you'll get into that physical space and they're like, I'm going to work out 5 days a week for an hour. Right. And my next question is like, how committed are you to that? Because you've yet to do like 10 minutes in like the years of your life. And now we're suddenly doing 5 days. Like no one's doing that. Right. So really narrowing it down to that 2-inch domino, I think is important. And it's the same way with the goals. You'll see that agents will be like, that's it. I'm lead genning for 3 hours. And reflecting, they haven't even done, right? They won't even turn in their form on Monday. You're chasing them down all the time and barely make those contacts. So I love that, like narrowing it down and asking that focusing question to what they're willing and committed to do. Gary Keller said in the one that people will only do what they understand and are willing to do, right? That they're committed to doing. So push back on their goals, I think, is important on that weekly activity.
And like what we were talking about, understanding the personality, not even personality, the person inside and what those motivations are, knowing their one thing, right? Because just like what, that was awesome, Zach, just like what Gary was talking about the other day, or was it Gary? Yeah, it was a Gary quote. The biggest pain wins. So if your one thing is to be able to fund a wonderful life for your kids, are your actions consistent with the activities that it takes to accomplish that right now? And recircling back on whatever that one thing is on them, right? Because ultimately at the end of the day, I'm here to support your business. I'm here to support your life. I'm here to watch you grow and to do anything I can to facilitate that. So I don't want you to be in a position to where you can't have time with your kids, to where you can't take 2 or 3 or 4 week vacations, right? To where you're comfortable enough to do that, to where you can be an awesome parent, an awesome life partner, or whatever that is. So knowing what they are, and then bringing that back up to light, because sometimes they'll get lost. They think in a different way than we do, right? So they'll tend to get a little bit lost in the shuffle of everything. So we just bring them right back down to center. We've got one goal that we're going for right now, and then we've got a bunch of much smaller things that we need to accomplish along that road, the journey to get there.
I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so we're down to a minute. Does anybody want to share anything before we adjourn? That was a great conversation, you guys. Did everybody get something out of that? Awesome. Any thoughts on our topic for next week?
I couldn't really hear what you said. Did you say you wanted to hear what we want as the topic for next week?
Yep, exactly.
Oh. I don't know. That's a loaded question. I feel like there's so many options that I don't know.
We could always surprise you if you don't want to pick. If you have something in mind, throw it out there.
If not, you can get us stuff by Friday. We can reach back out. You can email, text, call. And if you let us know by Friday, then we can get a topic together and get it going for next week. And the only reason we want to figure this out early is just allows us to find not necessarily the way that we do it, but the best that could be done. So if there's someone that's doing it at a high level, gives us a chance just to contact them. That's all. All right, I'm going to hop off. I got another training call. Thank you, everybody.
Yep, thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.